Hello and welcome, as today's date comes in that of the 19th day of November 2019. My name is Derek. Like always, all bets, trades of the like within each's own risk and their own reward. I'm going to go over Theta coin and then I'm going to go over DFS, but more importantly, bankroll management. As for me, risk reward management is always job number one. So let's get started here. Let's look at technical analysis and see within this line, which was resistance in this area of near 1100 for quite some time, going back to really early part of this month, September the 2nd, as it's the area on for the 4th. And, well, it got above it on the 8th, but I mean, not really. That was just extended resistance, as was it here. Now, this was just an ultimate fail, not ultimate, but it was a large failed breakout. Not really much of a fast move. I mean, it did go down to a previous low, but and nothing more after that for its correctionary move. Successful in here, getting above the 18 average of highs on the 15th day. 2 days going back. Yesterday's session was up 8.4%. So far today, up 2.9%. So we're holding and staying above it. It looks to me now as if we're ready for what could be, I don't know what test number, well, test 1, 2, 3, I guess you could say 4. Lately above that 1300 since the decline from 2. So those are the next key levels. You go 13, 1400, getting there. Now then you got like, well, I guess you could say 17, 1800. Then you're in the 2500 to 25-ish hundred range, and then 3500 to 3600, which actually goes back here, the 36, and then the 5000 once hit level. And then after that, you're approaching brand new territory. So those are, I suppose you could call them key levels. And viewing this on the single hour term time frame, that level of resistance was supported starting at 7 o'clock yesterday morning. It finished its support there yesterday at 2 p.m. Comes back to this previous level of established resistance. It higher lows it, or it supports the 18 lows, and it supports the congestion area. And then we break established, reset, or establish new ones, or yes, just that. We have one good red candle down with a little bit of follow through, but back to where we came from. And since then now, well, it's managed to come back to this previous high. So just in this in here, we've already seen within 5 periods a play that's went up, came back down. Let's just go, to say wherever the high or low. We can see that it's already came up already close to this high. And we've got this little bit of a pullback. So even just a little bit of this. Getting above this level, well, that's continuation right now, and then no need right now to state that this run on the hourly is done. It will at some point, but, well, if we break above this resistance, who knows? It could be 13, 1400 in a quick period of time. It could be 1210. I'd want to see something like this on the short term. Well, what's going on with it? And now we can see a situation in here. It's almost like a double bottom, but the second low is even lower. For a double bottom is basically 2 U's or 2 V's. So there's 1 and there's 2. So established resistance, not quite and not quite. And higher lowing in this area, if it's going to be any corrections, okay, that's big. But getting above in here, well, that could be some very interesting things. And we'll see. This thing has a good setup continuing as I take a look at it, or as I'm looking at it. Okay, moving on to fantasy sports, but more importantly, bankroll management. As again, for myself, risk reward management's always job number one. And one of my fun things is turning practically nothing into something. I've done it a few times, cryptos included. And within this is just simply playing individual hockey games every single night. As long as I have one. There's 2 nights I haven't had any. There's a few times I have 2 in a day on the weekends. But it's 1 game a night. Tonight it's Edmonton going up against San Jose. I like that game. Last night was really good, though, because I took this little bankroll. It went from here all the way up here. So now I have a larger bankroll to play with. I was playing around with diddly, whatever you want to call the stakes when you have like under $100, and now I have under 3. or close to 3. And therefore, what I have myself is a situation to control, understand my wages. Okay, what's the probability for the game? Because I've came across a game that, or a strategy that would work very well, especially if there was a shutout. And last night it was a shutout, and I had like 225 in risk, and I got back like 225. So very, very good, especially after this little bit of a loss that took place. 359 in wagers, 612 return back for an ROI, return on investment, of a little over 70%. That's unsustainable, but that's because of the big move. Now I got to manage this. Hopefully, if there's going to be any down moves, I should hold and not ever go below this. That's the type of thinking pattern that I'm going. I risked 25. That means it's not as good of a game as yesterday's was. I mean, it's pretty much close to the same. The only difference is it's got a higher over-under, and that's not a good thing. So, less chance of a shutout. We'll say it that way. And therefore, normally I'd be like, well, if I was spending 25 yesterday, I'd probably spend like 15 today. Well, now I'm going to spend at least 25 to 30, 40. But that's about as much as I go. Spending 40 in a loss would bring me down to about here. And you know what? That's a handleable situation. So now it's about building a bankroll on larger stakes. And the goal, again, is to get to the 10,000 number by the end of the Stanley Cup. But if I can get there by the start of the playoffs, that'll get really interesting, because the playoffs I expect to be very profitable. Now, looking at this on a statistical point of view, I have played 1,576 different lineups. So if I multiply that by 1%, which is a very easy calculation, I get 15.76, meaning I should finish in the top every percentile number that many times. The top 1%, 2%, 3%, so on and so forth. At least the average player would. But that's not the case. I've done better than double on the top 1%. So 34 out of 1,576 times my score result has been in the top 1% of participants in the field. At 2% of the participants, which is 1 to 2, 35 within that number, and 69 total. And the only one that gets violated is this 9% number at 14, and barely at like 10, and barely at 13. 42 of them at the 6. That's just crazy. But at the top 6% of the field, I've done so 204 times. The average player is supposed to do it 94.56 times. So I've done double that. And as far as the top 20% as a field is concerned, which is basically what you need to finish in these games to cash. Min cash is like pretty much, we'll say, double what you bet. And it's about 21%, but just using the even 20 number. 527 times, I'm supposed to do it every 315. And the rest of the way, from 20 all the way up to, well, from 20 to 100, or the bottom 80%, I've done 1,049 times, when the average person does it 1,261. And the game is really about consensus and probability. And understanding probability is something that's I'm very aware of as far as box scores in hockey. But as far as predicting what other people will do, what you're going to do, meaning other people in the game, how they're going to play, well, I can see after, it's like playing poker, except for everyone's hands are face up after it's done, meaning I download the results. And there's the face-up result. So I see what people are doing, and I realize, okay, mathematically, what gives me the edge? So that's where that comes into play. Well, we'll see how this goes. If this can break above 1,200, I'll be looking to get a few more sales along the way within the Theta coin. And also, I'll be looking at putting in more hockey bets for tonight within the fantasy lineups. And like I stated, if it gets to that point where I actually do get a 5-figure profit, I'll put in the off season, I'll put in a little book. But the playoffs is where the bulk of the profits should actually come in, not only because your bankroll should be higher and you have extra allocation to bets, but because there will be more volume in games available. The play competition will get weaker but stronger for you, and the game movements in the playoffs, the game styles, are better for you than they are in the regular season. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.